Welcome.
Panelimizde çok kuvvetli misafirlerimiz.
Actually, we have very strong names, powerful names in our panel. And I'm actually very excited about this panel, and I know that it's going to be very inspiring. I sincerely believe in this. As you know, we are together with Filiz, Yavuz, Diren, Gamze, Cizreli, Levent, Kömür, and together with my colleague Filiz, we'll be asking you some of the questions. By the way, Gamze, there is actually a function, so we'd like to actually, and you're not actually a member, so we are expecting you to be a member. Yes, of course, why not? You know, inclusive leadership concept that we discussed at the beginning of our program, and I just would like to elaborate on this topic. Because in today's business world, you know, inclusive leadership is very important. It's very much at the forefront, and you know, it's also being requested by everyone, by the employees and everyone. And therefore, I just would like to hear about your own experience, and I'd like to start with Gamze Cizreli. So, how about your own journey of inclusive leadership, what you're doing, and for example, how about the obstacles that you have encountered in your journey? Of course, inclusive leadership, I think I actually watched the very last session, but in speaking about inclusive leadership or diversity, these terms are musts. Especially after the pandemic, as you all know, the world is just stepping into a new order. And I think it's going to be, again, a prerequisite for all the managers. I think there are two aspects about inclusive leadership. As for the corporations, together with the employees, things have changed. In the past, there was a leader, smart, strong, giving all the decisions alone, but at the same time, a lonely hero. And this is also part of the entrepreneurs, I would say, especially the entrepreneurs in their journey of growth. They're alone, in particular, until they reach to a certain size. For myself, for example, almost 3,000 people, because we have so many different franchises now. But we still have the actual inspiration, just like we started as an entrepreneur initially. That's how we manage the company. Especially in doing inclusive leadership, I think the most important thing is that something that the entrepreneurs actually fail to do. They are mostly the founder, the CEO, doing everything, and they will never leave their seat. But 2 years ago, I transferred my position as a CEO to an operation director. No more the CEO. And now what I'm doing is just watching how my company is growing, and I'm also just a part of the strategic decision, but we're doing teamwork. I know it by experience, because especially I'm always telling it to my entrepreneur friends. When time comes, you have to leave your seat, your position. I think this is something valid for all leaders, not only the company leaders, because teamwork is very important, motivating everyone without any gender discrimination. And as a woman leader, I'm very sensitive about this topic. No discrimination based on gender or race or ethnicity. I mean, it's even, if you're asking me, shame over the world and our society to even discuss about these issues. It's very important for the leader to well motivate the employees, to have a democratic environment in the company. These are all very important, and I think I'm really doing it quite well. Of course, I had some challenges because being alone was a difficult thing. I did it. I made it. And I took the decision, so it's all mine. This is no more the case. This is not the case even for today. I mean, there's digital transformation. We have the new Z generation, Y generation. They all have different capabilities. Such a rapid transformation, not possible for you to know everything all by yourself. I mean, you have to act just like a family member. If you're asking, we are doing it quite well. I think there is actually the idea and of this giving value to everyone, sharing opinions, giving joint decisions, to appreciate people. These are important things. I think this is the reflection of inclusive leadership to the company. But the other point is also the suppliers, our guests. I mean, to be in an inclusive leadership position as a whole. We are the service industry. We can speak about 8 million annual visitors to our restaurant. So, as a leader, the messages that I would like to give to the society, as for gender equality, and for example, we have several projects that we supply from women, or for more access for people with disability, especially or there are different applications that we also develop, and especially for young people with Down syndrome, we also offer them job opportunities together with the Down syndrome society. In 8 of our restaurants, we employ young colleagues with Down syndrome. In particular, with the employees in the company and also in the entire society, we have to embrace everyone, because that's how the world is going on. Without sharing, without unity, without being shoulder by shoulder, it's not possible to grow. Even if you're asking me, grow is going to be something that we should speak about more, because we know about the catering industry right now, but also it is something to do with depleting resources in the world. Also, there is less employment. And both for our employees, for our guests, for our suppliers, we have to embrace them. I think we have to be much more conscious and maybe more peaceful. I mean, rather than, for example, just raising our fists, we actually have to open up our arms to everyone. I was such a leader also in the past, but I think we are just speaking more. I think there are further questions. I probably will speak more and more, so I better stop in here. Thank you. Thank you. Filiz, Yavuz, Diren, what do you think about this? I mean, in your personal leadership journey, what do you think about inclusiveness? In particular, how it is reflected in your case. Thank you. And I also listened to all the panels before. I enjoyed it a lot. And I actually also joined several panels and to speak about my own company, and I had the opportunity to learn a lot. So I would like to say congratulations, first of all. Of course, in speaking about inclusiveness, I would say, and I would like to speak about Cizreli, who passed away so recently. You know, he wrote several books, and he had several quotations, and all posted in the social media. And I would like to actually commemorate him and share one of his quotations. Cizreli said, in a world that is just trying to make me someone else, trying to be your own self in such a world is the most challenging task in the world. Just to be you, everyone is fighting for it. How is it going to be possible to find the support to be ourselves, and how we are going to contribute to this fight? Because once we are us, we'll be happier. Regardless of what we are doing, we have to do what we are doing with love and with enjoying the moment that we live in. Of course, to do so, Philip Morris Sabancı is a corporation and acting in 100 countries, thousands of employees, with all the infrastructure, the systems, the compliance units, and at the same time, in each and every country, there are different, for example, beliefs and ethnicities, but with an infrastructure that can embrace all. Therefore, as a professional operating system. But what is important is the essence. The essence is giving value to humans and to empower people. Because once you give value and empower, you are eventually and ultimately inclusive. If each and every individual can talk, if the managers can listen to each and every employee, I mean, it's not possible to be not inclusive. In other words, I would say, in my own leadership journey, what I enjoyed the most, maybe probably because I had a lot of challenge out of it, but it was all about working with people who are not like me. So I thought to myself that they will complement me, my deficiencies, my shortcomings. And that's the reason why people who are different from me always attracted my attention. Of course, in saying diversity and inclusiveness, the very first thing that comes to mind is maybe gender equality, or having people from different genders to be at the same environment and do the same thing or not. But even discussing it in the year 2021 is actually absurd, in my opinion. I mean, as you all know, the right to vote and to elect and to be elected was given in 1930. And now we're discussing whether women actually have the right to, for example, elect, or do we, for example, even in the family environment, have to defend for our rights. I'm a person who never suffered from anything like this. I mean, for example, I was born in Trabzon, by the way, and I actually studied at a boarding school and came to Istanbul from an Anatolian city. I, for example, worked abroad and observed the discrimination and inequality there. But still discussing this theme is something that really hurts me inside deeply. Of course, with the opportunities offered by my company, I actually tried to build upon that infrastructure and advance it further. As I told you, it's all about the essence. The essence is all about being human and to fully exercise the rights that actually arise from being human. You also mentioned it in the previous panel. For example, once you bring different ideas and opinions together, and at the same time you observe that you can possibly combine different parts of, I don't know, maybe you actually had the chance to gain 10 units rather than one by doing so. Of course, different thoughts, different past experiences, different genders. It is not an easy task for the leader to put them all together. Why? I think there must be a common ideal for all these differences to come together. You need a framework that you can put everything under. It's not an easy task for a leader. But I think today and in the future, it is going to be a must for the leaders. For example, as it really hurts me inside, the woman issue, I would like to mention it. I think this should no more be an issue in today's world. I mean, for the social and economic life, women must be much more participatory, and they should have an equal vote and equal say, also within the family. You have to think it in both ways, and you have to focusing on the woman, and you have to remind the woman that they have a right to say. Even at different steps of her career, women have a lot to do. We have several opportunities, but we are not aware of them. For example, one thing, asking for something is not an easy task for women. From time to time, you have to do mentorship for women, which is a part of our program. You should do it, and you have to teach women that she can ask for something, and also for the men who are working with women, we have to educate them and remind them that the women that they work with are equals of them. It doesn't matter, as you all know, people have different lives, and there could be ups and downs. and in that life, or people all have some stories that the others have no idea about. For example, woman after giving birth turn back to the office, but always they are saying the woman actually has a better project at home. Maybe I should work on my baby project, but always thinking about going back to the office. So, of course, on the top of the legal rights vested to women, and we at the same time try to facilitate return to the workplace through some orientation programs that we have. And also we help women so as to have a good balance. I have 3 sons, for example. I've been through this process, and especially for I know pretty well why mothers are always asking that question. Of course, creating this environment and facilitate them return to work, and if possible making leaves easier, is something in the hands of the companies and their leaders. The more that we share all these ideas, I'm sure that we'll have the opportunity to have more women, but we should not forget about the fathers as well. As we all know, once we're saying division of labor and in saying establishing a family, it's not only the mother doing it, also together with the father or together with the partner, they're doing it. So I think in speaking about the rights, we try to make it an equal distribution between the mother and the father. And the other thing I would like to mention about is that we're all business people in that panel. It's not only about our employees or our acquaintances around. Also, if we would like to change the people, change the society, we should be able to touch everywhere. For example, Gamze Cizreli mentioned about the supply of chain. Yes, because we are a part of a big chain. And especially we are responsible also for that chain. Big corporations, in my opinion, should take this responsibility. In our own chain, for example, we have 60,000 tobacco farmers, producers, 150,000 stores. And for these store owners, even 20,000 women store owners, touching them is important. We have to understand their needs. It's important. Sometimes things could be so simple, especially for women to be a part of the business life. For example, we asked for the women traders, what do you think, to the merchants, what do you need? For example, they asked for vocational training, just like the men. But they also said that we actually, for example, need a safety tech to do so. And for example, maybe you can provide the software. For example, in our phones there are several apps, for example, and now they can actually be safer through this application. Just to be inclusive, you actually do not have to reinvent America. Even small things can result in a big change and have a big impact. I'm also saying it so as to have access and reach out to all segments of the society. We have to share the good and the well-being to everyone. Maybe we can continue with the rest of the panel, just with last one word. For example, there is no equal pay between men and women. I mean, even it must be out of discussion. If, for example, people spend the same effort, what's the point in not having an equal pay? It is not something I'm proud of, but I would like to underline it. I think, for example, what we're doing is we are just having someone audit us from abroad, an international auditor, just to check whether there's equal pay, equal job or not. Whether, for example, equal bonuses, if they attend the training equally or not. And we just have someone audit us, and we receive certificates. And we actually have to take these certificates. Why? We as the leaders should do it not only because we think it that way, but because our companies should do it. Because, as Gamze Cizreli stated, we need democracy, and everyone should have equal opportunities. And I think I don't want to keep Levent Kömür longer. I think I better end up here. Thank you. Thank you. You're totally right. It's all about intentions, and even spending efforts. And with awareness, you really can make a big difference. And maybe that is the mindset that we should have. Therefore, it's very important to organize these types of panels. And you're right, we're still speaking about gender discrimination in here, but by this way, we learn from each other, we inspire each other, and hopefully we also will have the chance to apply what we learned here in our personal lives and our business. Now let's move to the minority, to Levent Kömür. It's actually human, not man or woman. That's how I prefer. At least I'm not actually diverse in here, I would say, from that perspective. So it stated that inclusive leadership is something demanded in today's world. We have to give an answer to the question why. Then we will have some problems in terms of sustainability of inclusiveness. Why? Why diversity, inclusiveness, inclusive leadership, these types of things that we started to talk, and why these terms become popular recently. And probably, for example, if you ask me why you give importance to inclusiveness as a general manager, probably people will say it's a part of our policy and so on. But my answer to this is, as discussed in the previous panel, it's not a choice. Why it's not a choice, but a must? It's very simple. In 1980, we started globalization, and now we had a huge growth and a fast growth. But now at the point where we are, there is so much uncertainty with regards to sustainability of the companies, and on the top of this, we now have the pandemics on the top of the uncertainty. So everything is much more uncertain in terms of growth. So from the shareholder capitalism, now we're just moving to stakeholder capitalism. That's what most will discuss. I think it's all about the uncertainty, because of the uncertainty with regards to sustainability of the corporations. That's where comes diversity and inclusiveness. As a system analyst, I would say, if there's uncertainty in any system, then you have to inject two things. One thing is empathy, the second is perspective. The wider perspective the managers have in that system, the better that they understand each other, then the system will be out of the crisis. Today, now, as a result of globalization, there is a crisis that we all face with as the corporations, and takes perspective and empathy. It will be possible. And to make it happen, we need diversity and inclusiveness. And it's not something new in the world history. And looking at the inventions, looking at civilizations that have been inventions so far, those who survive, or majority of those who survive, paid attention to diversity and inclusiveness. That also was the case in our territory, and was the case in Europe. Therefore, it's not something that we reinvent, actually. I mean, diversity and inclusiveness of humanity. After this introduction, it's going to be very difficult to get back to myself, but let me say, why? I mean, to the question why. I myself, while I was talking to my friends or received feedback from them, they are telling me that I'm good, you are good at inclusiveness. They are mostly telling me. I think it's something to do with the way that you were raised, and at the same time the way that you happen to be. And also Diageo said the same thing. If you are yourself, I think it is personal freedom and also equal opportunities. That's the perspective that I have, and both of the panelists also mentioned about equal opportunities. And I think my family and contributed a lot, and especially my school life. I'm graduated from Boğaziçi University, and my university throughout its history mentioned about the importance of freedom for me, to all graduates, and about accepting people as they are, being ethical, the importance of marriage, and they taught us about diversity and inclusiveness at the university. As I mentioned, the beginning of 1980s, in one of my talks, something that was banned at several universities was allowed at Boğaziçi University. And that actually equal opportunities, freedom of thought, all supported by the academicians and the students of that time. And I think my school life and my family contributed a lot in my perspective. And about how we act, or what is facilitating? I think there are two things. We have to remove the obstacles and at the same time make it possible. I think in the journey of inclusiveness and diversity, we exercise some unconscious prejudices. We have to get rid of them. Once we get rid of them, the inclusiveness journey would be faster, would be joyful. I think each and every one of us, and we of course all have some unconscious prejudices. We, for example, make comments, and it's not an easy task, but you actually have to start from somewhere. And the second thing is, especially for equal opportunities, I think there are two important things. I think justice and transparency. If in a system there is transparency and justice, then there will be equal opportunities. You don't need to spend some extra effort for this. You just have to ensure for justice and transparency as a manager. And therefore, once you establish them, I mean, as a leader, as a manager, you should contribute to that, because these two terms in particular, if it flourished, and therefore somehow, I mean, equal opportunities is just a consequence of it. And of course, several other issues will be resolved. So in saying inclusiveness and diversity, for example, gender balance is a topic discussed a lot. I totally agree with Filiz and Gamze that even must be out of discussion many long years ago. But especially thinking about gender balance issue in our country, once we fail to figure it out, it is not going to be possible to do something about the other areas of inclusiveness. Even 100 years ago, we should, for example, forget about the discussion, how many women, how many men, we should have left them behind so many long years ago. But this is not the case for the present time. So I think we should be focusing on this part of the problem and try to overcome this. Then age-related inclusiveness and sexual, again, orientation, about disadvantaged people. I mean, a lot of things that we should do, but we first should handle the gender balance issue. And as discussed a lot, some figures provided about equal job, equal pay, and at the same time equal representation at management level. There are two things that are mentioned about the number of the people who resigned, I mean, in the company. I'm just trying to figure out the balance, and those who promoted. I pay attention to these two figures in my company because I think these are important indicators. And if, for example, I actually have to draw some lesson out of it, and so I actually answered your question.
Biz teşekkür ederiz. Hemen ikinci soruyu da size
Asking the second question to you immediately, I'll be moving on. In workplaces where there are inclusive leaders, what do you think the impact of this on the employees? How do you observe the impact of this on employees? I know the impacts are quite positive. They're just expressed in figures, but is it merely about increasing satisfaction of the employees? As you said, we're living in a world of economic challenges. And how do you think we are managing the concerns and anxiety in the employees when we are an inclusive leader? Thank you. It's a wonderful question. In particular, there are two things that would avoid maybe the anxiety of the employees is to have a perspective, because when there is perspective, in a way, people would appreciate that they're living in a world with empathy, and only then they would be having an incredible thrust. Safety and thrust are translated into the same word in Turkish as güven, but they're not necessarily the same, because when the employees, when they have these two concepts, they want to do whatever they can, the best of them. What is really important is to be within that magic platform. So it's about including everyone, but in that path, it's not about questioning whether we're including everyone, but it's rather about whether I can make that environment possible. In other words, inclusive leadership is not about the door, the place of the door of a room, but rather about the air that is inhaled within that room. As long as you create that atmosphere, I'm sure that sustainability, people will do best for sustainability. That is all I can say for the moment, and then I will just stay aside. What do you think, Filiz? You're just working quite hard on these concepts, not only in the corporate environment, but privately as well. What do you think of the impact of it? Actually, I can say that we're all the same. And maybe the only thing that what I can say is we are not any different from each other, because I've been working for this company for 22 years, and I've worked with different companies, and I know the motivations of people who are working with other companies. Therefore, I am Muslim woman, and because of the place that I was born, because of my colors, if I'm not heard, then I would be unhappy. But maybe in a world that all of this doesn't make any sense or doesn't matter, where people hear me because of my ideas and because of my skills, then I would like to speak every time, then I would like to be useful to the companies that I'm working for. So we're no different from each other. So we all need to be heard by others, and we all have the needs and willingness of sharing our opinion. As a matter of fact, as leaders, what we are trying to create is the diversity of the platforms where everybody is representing. So this is what you're trying to do, is you're just trying to urge people to speak up so that people can hear each other's concerns. And it's rather about how the organization will be taught to raise up their voices, how they can be created platforms to be heard. And we are reteaching our leaders to hear others speaking, because it's all about being heard and to create platforms for being heard. I mean, you cannot appreciate for me who I'm to listen to or hear speaking, depending on any of the criteria that I just said. So I think just like me, people will be quite happy as long as they're heard. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, when people are heard sincerely from the bottom of their hearts, the person would feel it, and it's just going to have an impact. As the Mediterraneans, we love to speak, and we are quite excited, and sometimes we don't have the chance of listening to each other when we're excited, but you are right. When somebody hears you from their heart, you would feel quite well. Gamze, I mean, how did you feel in the motivation of the people after all of this? It's a wonderful session. I've been watching Filiz and Levent quite closely. It's quite an informative panel, and would like to thank you very much. And I have to agree the previous speakers, because that feeling of trust, that transparency, that bonding, and sincerity. Sincerity is also important, because we, as the service sector or the restaurant sector, is a sector where we have a high circulation, because it's a scattered environment. Therefore, being together, everybody has to reach out to everyone from a seat, and to make bonds, of course, although there are some interim positions. But in a way, the corporate culture or the perspective of the leader to pass on to everyone, it's really important. I always say, we have the project From the Soil to the Table, where we are trying to include women in the supply chain. Actually, it was back in 2018 that we first started, 3 years ago. Now, as we keep doing the project, and I was hearing it from our people working on the field, how proud they were just telling about it, how people were encouraged, I mean, the guests were encouraged to consume those products. Actually, we are hosting this project. We are quite sensitive, and it's for the first time that we're the first restaurant chain who is doing it, because the leader is a woman. So we are spending efforts in strengthening women, because we're sensitive for the issues of the women. So I mean, it's this motto that our employees were just using, because in a way we keep telling it to our people. So I see an inclusive leader with high empathy would not only use the feelings and the heart, but also the brain in balance. So this is about reflecting this entire thing to the team. It's how a love brand can become. I mean, I can say this to our own brand, because it's been quite a short time that we have reached a certain level of guests, and maybe a certain level of size. We've reached it. So we are just getting to a point as a women entrepreneurship brand, and so if we have reached the position of having some as a chain restaurant in many countries, it's really exciting to involve the team. And I can see my people, we wouldn't like to upset Gamze or Altan Bey, and it's really important, because I know that the other company is represented here are more multinational, more global, companies, quite different. But we're speaking about a smaller scaled entrepreneurship company, although, I mean, of course, inevitably, the language is different. But despite of the negative dynamics of the entire industry, the circulation of our staff is quite low. And I think this is merely the reason why probably people are proud to have a women leader, a team, the high management leading with some principles and projects. And I think it makes them proud. And I think this is how we are surviving. Well, thank you. I will pass on to Filiz, the other Filiz, and my colleague. Thank you very much, Meltem. Actually, we are getting into the last half an hour of the panel with the Q&A. as we are turning the last corner, I will be asking projections for the future, because new relations, new horizons. How do you see up this in the horizon? There are things that are hurting our hearts now, but how do you think about the perspective for the future? And to make effective use of time, I've checked with the questions, and people were asking about the pandemics as well. What do you think about inclusiveness and diversity after the pandemics? How do you think that the implications of the pandemics would be? Maybe for shorter and longer run, what are your aspirations, dreams and targets after maybe the pandemics? Just to inspire us, what do you think about the future? Then I will leave the floor to Filiz. We have a huge opportunity now, because we are now in the terrible times that has brought us a lot of trouble. We had people who were sick, who died, who had to go through economic challenges, but we also had the opportunity of seeing our weaknesses and strengths as a country. I do think that our solidarity increased, and we've seen the importance of relatives, friends, neighbors, and we had to support each other maybe more than ever. So we remembered indeed the values in this period. Also, we keep speaking about digital transformation. Maybe, the 10 years we've involved, unfortunately, the restaurants are closed now, and they have built other distribution channels to compensate for that. Consumer habits changed, working habits changed. We were just discussing whether Friday should be the free day or the half day for our employees, and we would never have imagined a world that all employees could work home, taking care of their children at the same time. Or we never dreamed that the people needing flexibility can be given that flexibility. And now I'm just sitting here and I was just thinking, were we crazy? Working all that hard, maybe down to the midnight. The technology was ready and it was just enough to be pushed a bit so that we can start working as such. So I think the working life, and I'm sure that it's the same for all companies, are now becoming more, flexible. They're just transforming themselves, becoming more flexible, and maybe shifting to the office life where people not go because they must, because they want to. And I know that women in many different industries, they have to work, but they cannot work because of their responsibilities at home. Now we'll have better and more flexibility and probably will have more place in the working life. Not just people working on table, but at the same time those who are working in the field. And it's really my biggest dream to have more people working, more women working on field. In my previous position, I was a sales director, and I was one of the few women in sales. And there I really have noticed that women can be quite successful on field. So we were just discussing always how we can increase the number of women on field. Now leave aside the office work. Even the field work is now transformed into a remote way of working. And I think 2020 brought incredible challenges to us, sometimes anxieties, sometimes upsettings, but has been quite a teaching year. And we're now in the verge of all of these big transformations that we will be adapting to our companies. This way, we will have the chance of including, maybe more than ever, the individuals who are living in different conditions. And this may be for the first time that we're thinking about it. And I think digital transformation will be the major transformation for women. This I'd like to highlight even further. There is technology available, maybe more than ever. And now it will be the time to involve technology into business life, and it's most of the time the startups that will create and adaptate themselves to technology, but this will be the same for bigger companies, particularly multinationals. It becomes more challenging for them to involve technology or something new into their structure or digest it. This has been a period where people have been courageous enough to say that we can do more. And digitalization is an opportunity not only for the employees of our companies, but we spoke of our supply chains. We spoke of touching the societies and being role models for the societies, but now we're running operations that will be exemplary for the public, and we will make sure that digital literacy is going to be quite relevant there. Actually, all kinds of inclusions and transformations, including inclusiveness in the society. I think we will set off by including the people near us, and then we'll continue with the rest of the society. In terms of inclusiveness, I believe that now we are more inclusive than ever, which is unlike, I think, the working life of the past. And I know that those who are not inclusive will be losing. So every leader must transform for this and to this end, because it's a competition now, and every other day the companies will have to raise the bar a bit further, so as not to detach from this race. I think we'll have to multiply these examples, make them become demandable. Even the questions that we don't like should be welcome, because only then we will be improving ourselves, not as an individual only, but as companies. Thank you. Well, thank you, Gamze Hanım. Would like to continue with you. And the questions also indicate restaurants as one of the most effective sectors from the pandemics. Three of you represent quite challenging sectors, but as the service sector, and we know that you had a lot of employees who had to stay away from working life. What is in your dream? How do you see the horizon ahead? Yes, that is true. It's the service sector that was affected the most, and it's just us who are closed with a government decree, excluding the spas and maybe Turkish baths. I mean, we're down to zero revenue. I mean, speaking about 5% of a share in the revenues. And for quite a long time, and it was like 1.5 months that we were locked down, and now it's almost going to be 1 to 3 months, maybe after the government meeting. We are expecting the decision of the government about normalization tonight. But of course, there has been an incredible lowering of the revenues in the sector. And this period, and of course the period ahead of us, to recover, it'll take some time for us to recover, to be honest. Therefore, the service sector, including mine, probably will not be speaking about growing further, and rather will be the time that will concentrate on efficiency and productivity together with the team. And here comes back the inclusive leadership, because in times of crises, it becomes even more important to keep people together. And that has been what we were trying to do in this period. Digitalization, technology, Zoom meetings, WhatsApp groups, just having visuals, to motivate people. I mean, it's been quite a precious time for all of us to make new plans, the new menus, and it's going to be the new time. And we were trying to inspire them for the future, and we are trying to give them the support that they might need in this period. I think the future will be about keeping people and leadership to keep people together. Stakeholder capitalism, I think it's going to be even more relevant for the future, because in the past it was rather about growth And in our interviews in the economy papers, we were just talking about figures, how the companies used to grow, growth, and growth all the time based on figures. But what happens now? We're all shut down. And now there are other sectors growing further. Okay, but as those sectors grow, nobody can be happy if the others are hungry. And what we say in Turkish, if your neighbor sleeps hungry, you cannot sleep. As a Turkish society, we like to share. And I think it was what happened during the initial times of the pandemics. And of course, I mean, you know, helping the health care workers and taking care of each other. After this period, I'm sure that employees and suppliers shouldn't be forgotten, by the way. And I'm just emphasizing it all the time because it's a total of 2 million registered people working in the restaurant business. But together with the suppliers, I mean, from dishcloth washers to the valets who are taking care of the cars of guests, I think it makes up to 10 million people together with their families. So we're covering a young population, up to 10 million of a population. Therefore, after this stage, I think CEOs and all the leaders, when we're talking to them, once we're opened up, I think it's going to be more maybe sharing, collaborative. After this period, the companies, doesn't matter how much, I mean, a premier bonuses, even them, I think, will have to be reconsidered altogether, because the time we're losing, we always just staying away, but in the time that we are going to win and gain more money, it's going to be gaining together. I think it's going to be the win-win situation. Nothing is going to be the same anymore. This is what I believe. And now there will be the new understanding of leadership, management, and we never will be able to work home, unlike you, who are just in the corporate life, and we're expecting to open up, so that people will be coming and we'll be having a cup of coffee, maybe just over dinner, over lunch, where people will be just discussing their problems. I really missed a lot. Believe me, we are the most affected sector, and I mean, I have a positive perspective towards life, and I'm trying to motivate my team all the time. It's going to pass. I mean, it's going to be over. Yes, it's huge. And for the first time, the world is embracing this crisis. It's going to be a huge change. But I agree with Filiz. And it's been a time of teachings, rather. This is how I prefer to look at it. It's just taught us to make empathy. And on my Instagram account, I shared the story. There is the story of a lizard. And there is the lizard and the Japanese architect, and the architect starts to make repair work, and so is the lizard. I mean, it's just surviving there next to the door, and he realizes that it's just surviving for 10 years and couldn't believe how that would it happen, because it was built 10 years ago, and has seen that there's another lizard just bringing food to the locked down lizard, and says that, okay, I mean, it doesn't matter big data, artificial intelligence, I mean, it's just another lizard that kept the other lizard alive, locked down next to one door. So by love and just solidarity, I think it's going to be how we are going to overcome this period, all together with the employees and all together with the suppliers. Thank you.
So what would you like to add, Levent, Kömür, especially with regards to question and the future? Well, quite a difficult question. Right, the jury's out. You know, we have inclusiveness at one side of the balance and diversity at the other. Probably after the pandemics, maybe there will be more authoritarian regimes to be asked by the people. Because why that authoritarian regime will bring more certainty and will give more trust. So there is actually the dilemma whether freedom or the prosperity. So just like you have to select out of the two. And Halil had such an article. And of course not possible for me to say anything on the contrary, but as for the inclusiveness to win, inclusiveness need two facilitators. If they come for help, inclusiveness will win. So there actually will not be people wearing all uniformly the same thing or uniformly thinking the same, will be changed. One is ethics, as we are speaking to the Ethics and Reputation Society, so one facilitator is ethics. And of course I'm joking, not because you are that society, but ethics will be very helpful for inclusiveness. So we will not have to select between prosperity and freedom. And technology, as Filiz stated, the second facilitator, because for example, plow was also an invention of technology of that time for agriculture. But technology will always be the supporter of inclusiveness and diversity, has always been so. And maybe, as you all know, human beings are the most disadvantaged creatures on Earth, and technology helped humanity to survive. I'm sure that also inclusiveness will win thanks to the support of technology and ethics. And I have a dream, and I say it everywhere. Once you say it 40 times, it will happen. And I think it is very important for us to actually wake up the naughty class inside each of us. If you would remember that movie and that novel, actually is a class with people from different ethnicities, different cultures. The only commonality in the entire class is that they are fans, supporters of Fenerbahçe Football Club. And once we said that, how I'm not the class, some of you will remember, for example, Mahmut teacher, some will remember Ayşen Guru'da, the other maybe Inek Şaban. But my biggest dream is that once again we will have the chance to interact that class, that naughty class mates inside us. So we continue to survive on these territories, I would say. Thank you. As there is a question actually about technology, by the way. Thank you very much for mentioning about technology, both panelists, because they asked the question whether technology will help to unite or on the contrary will be disruptive or not. And thank you very much for mentioning about technology. Now the last round of the panel. Speaking about the future, there is a specific question I would like to ask. I listened to you separately, and you actually have different backgrounds, and you mentioned about your academic career, and you're telling us what makes you is your past, which is something so good. But also, as Levent stated, you also have to know about the prejudices that you have. You mentioned about your parents, and in speaking about the future, I would like to ask a question about your children. Once you are a parent, we found out that it is not our words but actions that matter. And therefore, in your personal, private life, and for your children, because as you all know, as a citizen, as an individual, while you're raising your children, how do you treat them? It could be consciously or unconsciously. In terms of diversity and inclusiveness, how do you just try to make your children know about inclusiveness? It's actually a question for three of you. That's the reason why I make actually a long introduction. I'll not take your time, so you can answer one by one. So you may start with Filiz, I guess. I have three sons, and we because we also have a male cat, so quite male dominant home, and I'm actually a minority, but not the minority, I would say. You will have to be very careful while you're selecting your spouse and your job, because they are actually the source of your happiness in life. Of course, raising a child is actually like shaping a doll, not an easy task, but but they actually see a working mother at home, and they observe how the mother and the father are helping each other. Because my main goal is that they'll be happy individuals. And by the way, I have one twin and one son, and you have to help them realize themselves, to reveal their own personality. Just like we, for example, prove our existence, that's the only way that we will be happy. Same thing for our children. The time that they feel their own being, they will be happy. I think as parents, in terms of the way that we approach to our children and the way that we treat them will exactly shape how they will treat their partner, their spouse, their co-workers, their employees in the future. That's what we hope for. That is, of course, we mentioned about empathy. It's not an easy task. Trust me, I have just recently succeeded in understanding men. And it is not only about men trying to understand women, there is also a fact that women also should understand men. So really some of the things were actually simpler than I thought. And I actually had the opportunity to better understand it while I'm just raising my children, especially from the improvised behaviors that they have. So my whole goal is that actually to raise them in a way that they are happy, so they also will make their surrounding happy, and I hope that it will work, so they also will be individuals beneficial for the society. That's what we hope for. Thank you very much. What would you like to say, Gamze? I have two sons. I'm actually a single mother now because both of my sons are in the States. And we actually lived together until university together, my business life, my personal life. And I think in this journey about being sensitive towards the society, and we observed how I work with my co-workers. And in the recent, for example, Woman Project, and the project about from women to the dinner tables, and I actually was invited to the United Nations and to address to the assembly. And my son is studying medicine and will be graduating in May and will become a doctor. And in his own university, with the Youth Assembly of the United Nations, he had a project about gender-free toilets in the hospitals. And for LGBT, for example, because they do not want to get into the restrooms, men, women. So he had a project on this and discussed that at the United Nations. So I discussed about women empowerment, and probably I think, for example, he's very sensitive about the society, quite egalitarian, and always thinking about how I can be useful for the society, making, for example, he's telling that I will be both a clinician and a researcher, and I would like to get the Nobel Medicine Prize. So my son actually has such dreams. It's not about I want to be very successful, I want to make a lot of money. No, that's not the case, but he is always just trying to understand how I can be useful for the society. And my second son is studying entrepreneurship in Boston. Now he's working, for example, what can we do for the people with disabilities and so on. So it's all about being, serving to the community. And so, as you mentioned in your introductory speech, it's all about how to inspire your children, and not the words but your actions, because actions speak louder than words. So they observe me, and I totally agree with Filiz. So hopefully they'll be actually useful and beneficial for the community, because all parents are serving the best for their children. And it's good to raise sensible, sensitive children and individuals who are respectful for women. And once they actually have such role models, such mothers, they're also much more sensitive. So I hope they all will have good luck, and I'm quite happy with my sons for now. So what would you like to say, Levent? Not a lot to add. We also have twins, by the way, but one son, one daughter. I'm just thinking to myself, what should I say? But Gamze and Filiz already mentioned about happiness and being an individual. And these two words in particular, or these two concepts, better to say, once you can let them understand these two terms, everything is going so well. What can I say different from what is already mentioned, what I'm doing conscious or unconscious? I think I'm judging my children less, or try not to judge at all. I try to listen to them. That's all. Thank you. So actually, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for sharing your experience with us so generously. And thank you very much at the same time for being very timely. And I'd like to give the floor to Meltem. Thank you. Once again, I would like to repeat, we really enjoyed the session, the panel. Actual time passes so quickly, and I hope that you also enjoyed the panel. You know, it's a topic that becomes much more colorful the more that you talk about it, open up new horizons. And thank you very much for your contribution to the panel. So also I'd like to thank to all the participants as well. As you all know, goodness is contagious, and I hope our children will all have good luck, and hope they always, and we actually move to inclusive parenthood from inclusive leadership, but parenthood is also like being a leader. Thank you very much, and good evening.